The commissioner of the city's Department of Social Services, Molly Wasow Park, will officially leave her role after 2.5 years leading the agency. But she worked across city agencies in leadership roles for more than 2 decades, a long and distinguished career in city government. This now comes as Mayor Mamdani reversed course last week and announced that he will bring back homeless encampment sweeps, and after more than a dozen outdoor deaths during the city's record cold snap earlier this month. Commissioner Molly Wasow Park joins me now to reflect on her career and much more. Welcome back to the program. Very good to see you.
Thanks so much for having me.
You've spent time at HPD, the Independent Budget Office,
Yep.
but we mostly know you from social services. What are the highlights of your time there that you want your successor to know about and perhaps continue?
Well, I think to answer that question, you have to go back to what the world looked like and what DSS looked like 3 years ago when I stepped into the seat. At that point in time, we were getting somewhere between high hundreds to thousands of asylum seekers every week in need of shelter. And when I walked in the door, nobody told me this before I took the job, but we were tens of thousands of cases behind on cash and SNAP processing. So walking into 2 gigantic crises, really, that frankly could have sunk a lesser agency, either one of them, but we solved them. The asylum seeker crisis was really a whole of government effort, but at this point, virtually all of those New Yorkers who need care are in DHS shelters. We have mixed them up, so you no longer have this bifurcated system. We really got it into a very different place, and sort of similarly on the cash and SNAP side, we came together as an agency, brought together all of our resources, and were able to get benefits out to people, to New Yorkers, in the timely way that they deserve. So I think we've really turned the corner, but we were also able to do some really exciting proactive things. Record numbers of people placed in jobs, record numbers of people receiving homeless prevention services. The piece that is nearest and dearest to my heart, though, is the housing work that we've done. Sure. DSS is now the 2nd largest housing agency in the country, behind only NYCHA. We have about 65,000 city FEPS vouchers that are out in use, and we're financing affordable housing at the agency. We restructured the supportive housing program 1515, so it's sustainable, created a chief housing officer. And when you look at the exit numbers, the people leaving shelter for permanent housing, my first year it was about 15,000 households, second year 19, and last year about 23. So that's, altogether, that's like 100,000 New Yorkers who are out of shelter and in permanent homes because of DSS.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to skip over this. This is very innovative. You're using rental vouchers to help finance the creation of affordable housing. Yep. Did that survive legal vetting? The first time you told me about it, I was thinking, it's like, they're going to have a lawyer look at this.
There were a lot of lawyers who looked at it, yeah. I mean, it's not unprecedented, right? The project-based Section 8 has been around for decades, and so this is taking city resources and doing something really similar. But the contract includes the city FEPS voucher, the rent piece of it includes some funds for operations, and it includes light touch social services, and we've either up and running or about to close on their financing about 1,000 units, which is great. These are going to be permanent homes specifically for people coming out of the shelter system for the next 30 years.
Is this a matter of you stepping up to do something that we outsiders assumed that city government would do, which is work with the housing agencies in order to get these units built?
I think affordable housing and homeless services have been incredibly siloed over many, many years. And despite the fact that 85,000 people are going to sleep in shelter tonight, one thing they have in common is that they don't have an affordable place to live. Homelessness has been treated as something other than a housing issue. And because I came from a housing background and knew the landscape, knew the tools, that could really be my area of focus, and we were able to innovate there.
Okay. Some of the reporting suggested that you were not necessarily in sync with where the new administration wants to go. Is that a fair way of putting it?
I wouldn't say that. I think new administrations want their own people, and that became clear that they were going in a different direction, and so I made the decision to resign. But I was working very closely with them for the first 2 months, and I don't think there was a major policy difference there.
I also associate you with the widespread use of so-called safe haven beds, meaning without going through an extensive background check and screening process, giving people a place to lay their head fairly quickly, not as a permanent solution, but as a way of keeping them off the street on any given night.
Yeah, the safe havens are a really important part of our toolbox. The model existed before me, but we've been able to grow it quite substantially. These are a form of shelter that are targeted to people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness. They tend to be a little bit smaller, a little bit less dense, fewer rules, and they have been really important in helping people come off the street. It's an easier placement for people to accept than a more traditional shelter placement. One of the other things in the unsheltered world that I think has been important over the last few years is that we used to sort of declare victory when we got somebody off the street and into a shelter or a safe haven. We've now actually really added that full through to permanent housing focus. And so we're now placing annually about 1,100 or 1,200 people from those safe haven beds into permanent housing, which is, that's really the goal for everybody.
This wasn't necessarily part of your portfolio, but there's a discussion that's going on. I talked about it with the controller, and the mayor has made reference to it, which is that City FEPS, the main voucher program, was expanding at such a rate that it ultimately was, I don't know if unsustainable is the right word, but it was growing at a rate of 4% a month, according to the city controller, and needed to be capped at some point. Do you have any sense of whether or not this is a sustainable strategy for the city?
I mean, this is something the new administration is going to have to decide. I will say we've done various things to bend the cost curve a bit. So, for example, we align with NYCHA on what the payment standard, the maximum rent that we will pay. It has traditionally been 110% of the HUD fair market rent. This year, it's going to be going forward. It's going to be 103% of the fair market rent. So there's things we can do to help manage the cost. But the real reason the cost of the program is growing is because we're adding households, and we're adding households because that gets them out of shelter. So there are some trade-offs that to think about there.
When it comes to unsheltered street homeless, the common belief, or something I've heard from advocates for many times over the years, is that that is an indication that the shelters themselves are not safe, that people would rather take their chances on a park bench, as frightening as that might seem, or as dangerous as that might seem, especially in winter, compared with what's going on in the shelters. What's the reality there?
So I think it's important to situate that in the context of where people are, right? 97% of the people experiencing homelessness in New York City are inside, right? They are in shelters, they are in safe havens. So the number of people who have, for whatever reason, opted not to be in shelter is relatively small. Now it's too big. It's something that we certainly want to shrink, but we're largely talking about individuals who have been failed by everybody, right? Every level of government, every level of society, right? Family, religious institutions. Many of them have been institutionalized and have had negative experiences with institutions in the past, right? So there's real trust issues and trauma issues to overcome before somebody might be willing to accept a placement. It's why the work of the outreach workers is so important, because they are out there 24/7, right? Trying to build those relationships. We are really trying to make sure that we have sites in every single borough, in lots of different neighborhoods, right? So that many different configurations, so we can meet people where they are and help them come inside. And many people do, right? The reason the number of people on the street is relatively constant is not because we aren't making placements. We're getting people indoors. We're getting people into permanent housing. There's unfortunately also a steady flow of people coming from institutions and things to the street.
Okay, very good. What will you be doing in the future? Where will we find you?
Well, first I'm going to get some sleep and take the first vacation that I've had in 2 years. So I'm looking forward to that. But I care really, really deeply about this work, about affordable housing and how to help New Yorkers experiencing homelessness. So I will be somewhere in that space.
Okay, and we'll catch up with you when you find a landing spot.
All right.
Thanks so much for coming by.
Thanks
Always
for
great
having
talking
me.
with you.